Hello, Divine Souls, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Journey of Soul Mastery. I am your host, Rebekah Cortez. If you're new to this channel, the emphasis is empowerment, empowering your states of existence. And the focus of this video is annual growth cycles. I'll be teaching you how to utilize numerology to calculate your annual growth cycles. Let's dive in. Annual growth cycles mark the beginning and end of growth patterns, which are calculated utilizing numerology and are formulated according to our birth date. Using a simple numerology method of the month, day, and year of birth, starting from your birth year and following a structure of each year, but the calculated values don't always follow a numerical consecutive sequence. Each birth year represents a growth pattern, and each pattern lasts until the birth date of the following year that ends the prior growth pattern and begins a new growth pattern that will compose a growth cycle. Growth cycles are detected by what is referred to as breaks or jumps in consecutive flow of numeric sequence. You will see this in the example later. The benefit in exploring our annual growth patterns and cycles is to gain valuable insight into the universal principles, opportunities for growth and expansion, and challenges that represent aspects within us that require attention to resolve, like karmic patterns and cycles and ego states of falseness, as well as behavioral patterns that we should elevate to reflect our best version of self. Annual growth cycles are part of the collective human experience because we have all incarnated to experience the journey of self-mastery and spiritual ascension. There are numerous tools that we should utilize for preparation, insight, and to elevate our understanding of self and universal principles. The more we elevate our states of awareness, we will expand our ability to work in conscious unification states with our purpose-driven life. We all have life lessons we must experience for the opportunity to transform and transcend, which also leads towards integration with higher self on the journey of returning to conscious states of wholeness and divinity. The growth chart that I'm presenting and teaching you to create works with the major arcana of the traditional tarot. The tarot are one of my sacred tools that should be utilized for expanding understanding of universal principles that expand our awareness to support us all on our journey through self-mastery and ascension. The tarot are very sacred to me, and although there is much misuse of them, in my opinion, I only utilize the cards with the intention of optimizing awareness, guidance, and insight only relating to transformation and transcendence for myself and those that I work with as a guide. I do not utilize any spiritual tools for superficial purposes. We have a responsibility to exercise maturity and wisdom and come with a pure heart of intention when opening any channel or sacred practice. I would highly recommend resisting the urge to utilize any sacred spiritual tool in disrespectful or superficial means of practice. Everything in existence is energy, and energies are unique frequencies that house a vibration that can be equated to reflect a numerical value. Numerology is the pathway that links the meaning represented by the numbers. Numerology formulas are utilized to determine annual growth cycles by working with the figures linked to our birth month, day, and year. In this section, I will be teaching you the simple formula to calculate your unique growth chart for your lifespan. Now keep in mind that what we are configuring is just one element that goes into a full professional level chart, but I feel this primary information should be utilized by everyone who is committed to expanding their awareness of their transformational process. It will also be a way that you can start to honor the significance of your birthday and incorporate a practice each year by exploring your growth patterns and cycles of what will be presented year after year. So let's dive in. Every growth chart starts with the most important numerical component, which represents the outer archetype personality. We all have an inner and an outer archetype personality that explains the structure of our co-created, intentional life lessons, challenges and trials, and our inner qualities and abilities. But to stay in line with this focus of the video, I will only be discussing how to calculate the outer archetype personality, which will serve as the foundational blueprint of the entire annual growth cycle chart. There are guidelines to follow in structuring a growth cycle chart. You will need to reference back to either this section in the video or go to the printable document I've made available in the description box to ensure the accuracy of the growth chart. Any discrepancies will result in falseness in the chart, so you will need to pay strict attention to your calculations and check them several times to confirm accuracy. Now, here are the important guidelines to follow and keep in mind. The major arcana follow a numeric structure of 0 to 21. However, 0 is never an archetype personality. The only numbers that equate to an archetype personality are 1 through 9, because all cards that are 10 through 21 all equal to and can be broken down to any of these initial 9 cards, which are referred to as the archetypes. The only time you will be breaking down any sums is to calculate your outer archetype personality. In relation to your growth chart, however, the numerical values of 10 through 21 will never be broken down into singular values. 22 is the only exception to this rule, and 22 is always broken down to 4 because the major arcana ends at 21. This is an important note. Never assume that your annual growth patterns will follow a consecutive numerical sequence. There will be years that do not follow a consecutive sequence because there are always jumps that occur that break annual numeric sequence. This is critical to pay attention to for accuracy. It is the inconsistency of numeric sequence or jumps in the numerical patterns that indicate the ending of one cycle and the beginning of a new cycle that growth patterns flow in sequence with until the growth cycle ends, which creates the break in numeric consistent flow. Calculating your outer archetype personality. I'll be using the birth date of December 25th, 1969 as an illustration of how to calculate an archetype personality accurately. In the first step, we're going to add the birth month and day. For this example of December 25th, we're going to add 12 plus 25 equals the sum of 37. In the second step, you're going to add the sum of 37 to the birth year, which in this example is 1969. So 37 plus 1969 equals 2006. In the third step, we're going to be breaking down the sum of 2006, which equals 2 plus 0 plus 0 plus 6 is 8. 8 represents the outer archetype personality, which in the major arcana represents the adjustment and justice card. Computation for annual growth cycle chart. I will use the birth date again of December 25th, 1969 as illustrated prior for the example to follow when computing the numerical structure of the chart. To compute your annual growth cycle, follow the formula for the birth year and repeat for every year of your life. I usually calculate a growth chart to reflect a lifespan of 100 years. So as you can see in the first line here of birth, we have taken the sum of 37, which equals the month and day of birth, to the year of birth, which equals 2006, and breaks down to 8, which is the adjustment and balance card. If you follow this formula for each year, you can see in the illustration that it follows a consecutive order until you hit the year of 1983, and this will reflect the first break or jump in consecutive sequence. If you add 37 plus 1983, it'll equal to 2020, which is then broken down to 4, which represents the Emperor. And this will conclude the first growth cycle from birth to current of 1982. And that will end the first growth cycle. In 1983, it will begin a new growth cycle. Now I'm going to be introducing growth paths. There are 4 paths that reflect each major arcana card. So from 1 to 6 reflects the path of expansion. 7 through 12 reflects the path of lessons and opportunity. 13 through 18 reflects the path of transformation. 19 through 21 will be paths of transcendence. The only time 0 will appear in a growth chart is at birth, and as a universal support pattern. We are all supported by the universe throughout our journey, and a column should be included to show the consecutive ruling pattern of these principles reflected by the companion tarot card. This pattern will align with your growth cycles. These principles will offer additional deeper insight and guidance to support that specific growth year. And you will also see this in the example chart that I have created in the principle document that you can find in a link in the description box. In this section, I've included a breakdown of descriptions of each universal principle and opportunity, and also the challenges that we will face in our growth paths, patterns, and cycles. And these are represented by the major arcana. The purpose for this section is to serve as a reference point for when you get your growth cycle chart completed. I will be presenting the description of each universal principle, opportunity, and challenge that each of the major arcana tarot cards represent. And I have also included the path that corresponds with that major arcana card, so that you can use this in your own growth cycle to create a column that reflects that path, so that you can see throughout your growth cycles what paths you are on from year to year. So let's get started in talking about the Magician. The universal principle and opportunities in the year of the Magician represent communication, artful timing, unlimited expression, and manifestation. These are the basic universal principles that the Magician represents. The challenges that often people will face during Magician years of a growth cycle or pattern is resolving suppressed states of being, like fear of failure. And this is a expansion path. So High Priestess is the card 2, and it reflects the universal principle and opportunities of higher knowingness, embracing intuitive pathways, clarity through higher sight, independence, unleashed higher potential. And the challenges of that growth pattern for that year will be resolving past inability to trust oneself and your intuition. You're learning how to transmute critical internal nature. Next is the Empress, number 3. She represents the divine feminine, the yin nature, and this is regardless of gender. Each of us house the divine feminine and the divine masculine within our nature. And part of our growth and expansion is to learn how to synergistically and in balanced states work in unison with our divine feminine and our divine masculine. In the year of the Empress, which is also an expansion path, you'll have the opportunity to, through experiences, internally and externally, tune into your divine feminine and yin energy, which is nurturing, compassion. You will be balancing emotional states, embracing self-love and worth, opening your heart to feel freely. These are some of the examples of opportunities. The challenges are resolving deep-seated sorrow, which is emotional despair and mental regret. You'll be resolving self-sabotaging patterns, self-sacrificing patterns, and the fear of rejection. Number 4 is the Emperor. He represents the divine masculine and yang nature within us all. And the opportunities will be building trust through self-leadership, visionary and pioneering spirit states, fearless drive, and value change as opportunity. And the challenges of this growth pattern for that year will be resolving past inability to lead self, mistrust, and lack of belief in self. Number 5 is the Hierophant. The universal principle and opportunities you will face in a Hierophant growth pattern year is duality of the leader and student, meaning we are both, depending on what phase in life, we're either the student or the teacher, and we can shift those roles at any time, and we need to find the value in that and remain open to opportunities of being both and balancing the duality of that teacher-student nature. Evaluating core beliefs, an evolution of stability within oneself, solid internal foundations, and limitless internal resources will be some of the opportunities that you have to experience in empowered states. The challenges or disempowered states that you will be healing and addressing is resolving fear of defeat, which is mental, negative emotional disappointment, strife, anxiety, worrisome tendencies. 6 is the Lovers. And the universal principles and opportunities for this growth pattern year is really diving into the art of relating, enhancing your interpersonal skills, how you relate to others. And it doesn't matter what level of relationship we are dealing with, whether it's intimate, friendship, career, it doesn't matter. This encompasses the art of relating so that we can enhance our ability to relate to others in this world, which is part of the collective human experience. Embodying the principle of duality and polarity in the examples of loyalty and commitment, playfulness and stability, achieving dualistic balance internally and externally. And some of the challenges you're facing in this growth pattern year is resolving negative karmic relationship cycles and fear of commitment. And those 6 represent the expansion paths. Moving on to the 7 through 12 cards, these cards are representing the lessons and opportunity paths that we will experience throughout our growth cycle. 7 is the Chariot, which the universal principle and opportunities of this growth pattern year will be change through the choices that we make. Development of progression. Balancing quietude and activity. Contemplation of self. Positive forward focus. And the challenges will be resolving defeatist mentality, negative emotional indulgence, and fear of failure. I want to go back to the first opportunities of change through choice and development of progression. Just to clarify these two, there is power in choice, and our choices change the realities that we experience. And this year is all about harnessing the choices that you make, exercising responsibility for the choices you make and what your choices create for you to experience in reality of your existence. Development of progression is choice through progressing forward in positive ways and not holding ourselves back because we're afraid to take the next steps and make the choices necessary to have forward progression in positive ways. So that's what those two mean in more detail. Moving on to number 8 is adjustment and justice. And the universal principles and opportunities for this growth pattern year is harnessing centered and realignment with self, reclaiming authentic truth, shedding undesirable and reclaiming what is desirable internally and externally. And the challenges that you'll face in this growth pattern year are resolving mental doubt, combating negative interference, and ending karmic cycles of overextension. Number 9 is the Hermit, and the universal principles and opportunities that will reflect this growth pattern year is introspection. It's all about shadow work. It's going into deep into self. It's resolution and healing. It's harnessing potential. It's stepping into the wise sage within us all that has the ability to be the way shower, in the world, because we learn to lead ourselves positively, which is going back to the Emperor. We can step into the way shower and the wise sage when after we learn to lead ourselves. It's seasoned leadership of others is what the hermit represents. It's acquired wisdom from the experience that we have gained from leading or the misleading of self through our lifetime. It's about integrity and genuineness, and the challenges that support this growth pattern are resolving mental criticality and self-cruelty, mostly on a mental level. Number 10 is Wheel of Fortune, and the universal principles and opportunities represented by this growth pattern is uninhibited uninhibited spirit, uninhibited spirit, elevating your attitude, willingness of heart for expansion, embracing abundance and prosperity, and breakthrough in growth and expansion. And the challenges represented will be resolving fear of ruin and resolving oppressed states. Number 11 is strength. The universal principle and opportunities that growth pattern year will reflect is creativity and radiance, rejuvenation, passions will surface, vitality will become more of the center of your beingness, and you'll start to honor yourself and pay more attention to your character and quality traits. The challenges will be resolving self-abandonment, lack of self-trust, unbalanced states of negative discernment. Number 12, Hanged Man. The universal principles and opportunities that this growth pattern will reflect is surrendering your ego states, liberation, deep self-acceptance, elevation of perception towards self, and learning how to love wisely. The challenges will be resolving self-imposed limitations, breaking free of negative karmic patterns, past mental sorrow, stifling your soul potential. Number 13, Death and Rebirth. The universal principles and opportunities that this growth pattern will reflect are releasing falseness within your core belief system, detachment to ego states, elevated transformation, crossroads of renewal, unleashing authentic expression, elevating self-worth, expanded states of awareness, and elevated states of consciousness. Now we're getting into the path of transformation. And the challenges are resolving attachment to ego states of familiarity. So what this means is you're going to detach from what is not serving your best interest and what is not reflecting the best version of self just because it's a familiar pattern. You'll be surrendering attachment to these familiar states because they are not reflecting the best, most optimal self that you're capable of being. Surrendering to soul potentiality, detaching from toxic patterns and cycles, fear of change. Number 14, Art and Temperance. The universal principles and opportunities that this growth pattern will represent is synthesizing polarity, synergistic states of existence working with the flow of the universe, elevating connectedness, having a deeper connection to unity, empowered states of existence. The challenges will be resolving spiritual oppression, disempowerment, dismantling illusions of separation, and resolving the fear of not belonging. 15. Devil Pan. The universal principle and opportunities reflected in this growth pattern are to embrace your lightheartedness and humor, facing fear with confidence, sacred sensuality and sacred sexuality. And the challenges that you will be presented with in this growth pattern are resolving dishonoring self and disrespectful conduct of self. And this goes back to sacred sensuality and sacred sexuality. Not giving away of yourself in dishonoring and disrespectful ways. Detaching from abusive dynamics. And you'll be diving into a lot of shadow work during this growth pattern. Number 16, Tower. The universal principles and opportunities presented by this growth pattern are healing and transmutation regarding yourself, transmutation of adopted falseness, transmuting adversity into progress, awakening to your potential, allowing authenticity of self to be expressed. The challenges you'll face during this growth pattern are resolving fear of disapproval from others, fear of disappointing others, procrastination, holding yourself back, suppression of authenticity to make other people happy, and limiting yourself to please others. 17. The Star. The universal principles and opportunities that this growth pattern will represent is elevated self-esteem, awakening to your divine nature, self-sufficiency, which is deep confidence, reclaiming your co-creator essence of truth, embracing manifestation creatively, and taking action without hesitation. The challenges that you will face during this growth pattern is resolving self-doubt, self-sabotage, mental and physical, and negative interference and obstacles. Number 18, the Moon. The universal principles and opportunities presented by this growth pattern are power of choice, free will, embracing positive emotional states, allowing oneself to feel deeply, self-reflection, and the challenges that you will face during this growth pattern are resolving duality of genuine versus ingenuine, negatively compromising self for duty and obligation, this is emotional, pleasing others versus pleasing self, letting go of expectations of others, and self-cruelty. And finally, we're in the last 3 cards, which represents the path of transcendence. Number 19 is the Sun. And the universal principles and opportunities presented by this growth path is community connection, working in partnership with everyone, elevating respect and value towards others, expanding your perception of possibility through collaboration or teamwork, expansive creativity, and energizing exploration on all levels. The challenges are resolving mistrust of others, fear of ruin from others, disconnection and isolation from the world, and mental judgment towards others. 20. The Aeon. The universal principles and opportunities presented in this growth pattern are elevated mental perception towards others, opening to the deeper meaning of experiences, exploring deeper insight, which is internal wisdom and intuition. You'll become more optimistic. You'll be a positive impact to the world and others. You'll strengthen your communication skills and have more expanded self-dominion. The challenges that you will face during this growth pattern are resolving critical judgmental perceptions towards all aspects of life. You'll be resolving controlling and manipulating behavioral patterns. And acceptance of others will be elevated. And you'll end pessimism. 21. Universe. Universal principles and opportunities presented by this growth pattern is integration with higher self, stepping into your wholeness states, reclaiming wholeness of self, activation of higher conscious states and abilities, embodying stage of transformation, expansive core healing. This is on every level: mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. Embodying your divine beingness of light and love. Deeply experiencing the interwoven connectedness of universal consciousness and transcendence of fear. The challenge will be resolving and releasing all karmic attachments to past sorrow, represented through past lives. Thank you so much for listening. Please don't forget to subscribe, like this video, click the bell for future notifications on upcoming videos, and share this with someone who you feel would benefit from it. Also look to the description box for a printable and downloadable document that will offer the descriptions that I have just gone over one by one with you. And also I have included an example of a full lifespan growth chart for you to reference to, so that you can gain a better visual on how the structure should look like when putting together your own. Bye for now.